Hello everyone, Raven here. As I said on my intro video, I really have some ideas I want to get into as far as what could happen with Mass Effect 5. Now, this is going to be a little bit out there in a sense. I'm not going to say this is what I think is going to happen. This is a way it could potentially happen that I think would be a lot of fun. I don't know what others are going to think of this. I'd like to know. But again, I'll go through at the end what doesn't fit right with this, why this is highly unlikely. But I still think this would be a neat idea. And that is if this had a lot to do with the Benefactor. People have already said something about maybe the figure we saw is the Benefactor. But I want to take a whole nother angle with it. Unlike what most people probably would assume if it is, what if the Benefactor is the antagonist you play the role of? First of all, to set up a little bit of what would be the, so to speak, background of this story. What if the Benefactor was somebody who had lots of connections, knew a lot of things going on behind the scenes? Imagine if they had a really good view of what was going on in Andromeda, and before any of it went down, the Benefactor could see a bit of what was growing there, a bit of the odd features within Helios, and the reason she sent them and went with them was because studying some of what was there could give answers, solutions, and or even maybe give a better sense of transportation. So that though getting there would take so long, getting back would be quick, which would be an answer to the problems. Now imagine after doing this, gets back to the Milky Way after this, and sees where the Federation's going with it. Now, consider what we heard from Liara within the original trailers. Here's what I would like to see happen. First of all, Liara notices somebody is basically spying. In other words, the Benefactor. Doesn't necessarily know it is the Benefactor, but tries to hunt them down. And maybe that's where you start the game. Actually playing as Liara for maybe the first level you go to, in a sense. And within this first sort of opening of the game, the story starts to sort of tell itself of what happened. And you find out what the Benefactor has started to uncover. And Liara, as the Shadow Broker, isn't so dedicated and sort of comes alongside to help. And at that point, the game really starts and you take control of the Benefactor. And mainly this is about weeding out who is causing this and stopping it. What do you guys think? I personally love the idea because it brings in new characters, keeps old characters, yet doesn't just bring in a character or characters who we've never heard of. It's ones we've only heard hints of. They could take in a lot of directions. So it's sort of like you're not getting a completely new character, but there is a sort of clean slate for them to be made into whoever the writers decide to take them into, whatever direction they want them to go. It also takes some of the Andromeda story, Andromeda setting, into this without really making it the focus. It's more of Andromeda hinted at little things, but the real center of the story is still in the Milky Way. It would be an interesting way to connect them, I think. That's what I like about it. Now, let me go through some issues. First issue, which is one that I would say is not concrete. It could be an issue, may not necessarily. Because what we know is we've had little glimpses of what the Benefactor did there in Andromeda. But we don't really know why, and we don't really know exactly what they were after. But within it, it does give the idea that the Benefactor is a woman. But I don't think it would take a whole lot to change that. I think if necessary, you could easily give a few explanations of why it may have seemed that way, but wasn't. So I think you could still change it, but based on that, it does make it harder to really bring this in as the playable character, because then whoever's playing it, it would have to be female. But that could also fit with why in the preview and on the poster, it obviously had a female figure. Next problem. If they do it this way, there would be a whole lot of information, and I mean a whole lot, that they would have to put in at the beginning of the game. There would be so many things to explain. How did they get back from Andromeda? How did the Benefactor know a bit of what was happening in the Helios cluster? How did she get all this information? Yet Liara, as the Shadow Broker, didn't. 4, a little bit more questionable, but based on what we've seen in the video posters, things like that, you get the impression that the Geth and Cerberus are involved in this in some way. Yet, how do you really bring them into that storyline? That seems a little odd. So, there are things that kind of cause some issues that don't quite fit. But for the most part, you could find your way around. It just would be difficult. So I don't think this is going to happen. I think it'd be neat if it did. Now, a couple little side notes I want to add on is possible things that could happen within this. What if part of what the Benefactor is doing is they found the Angara, by how they were created, hold a solution? What if when they got to Andromeda, they found they solved the problem they were hoping to? Go along well with the story of Andromeda. It would kind of fulfill some of the potential questions from that. And yet it's something that you wouldn't necessarily have to know those little connections to really follow along with the story. You just need the basics. So it'd kind of be a throwback to Andromeda without being too crucial a part. Another possibility, which is something that I've heard people mention before. What if the Benefactor is a part of Cerberus? Or, what I think would be interesting, what if there's been a slight change in Cerberus and you have to team up with them again? As long as it's done differently than it was in Mass Effect 2, that could be interesting. I'd be very cautious how they did it, but that's one thing they could try. So I'd like to know what you guys think. Tell me, what are your theories? What are your ideas? What do you think this is going to be about? Do you think the ideas I just threw out there are possible? Do you see anything in there that's going to be a problem that's going to make it, no, this simply can't happen. This wouldn't work no matter what. Let me know. I want to see what you guys think. Again, I don't anticipate this. I don't think this is likely. I just think this is one interesting possibility that I personally think would be fun and could lead to a very interesting story. Because you'd have a lot of secrets to uncover, a lot of holes to fill, and I always love that kind of story. I'll see you guys next mission. God bless.